we wake people up and feel great about it, and they wake other people up, and at the same time we're providing product that's beautiful and competitive. It's a great cycle to be part of.
Our goal has been is that folks of all socioeconomic levels should have good housing. They should have a good environment to live in. They should have good opportunities to recreate in their own front yard or backyard.
When we started to look at everything that we do through the lens of the natural step, we realized how far we had to go, and we're still working on that.
We're going to create jobs. We're going to create new industry. We're going to create a whole new way of doing business that'll be positive for the economy at the same time that we're being responsible to the environment.
In the next hour, we're going to visit a number of business leaders who are committed to doing all they can to make their businesses and their world a more sustainable place. One of several things they all have in common is that they live and work in Portland, Oregon, ranked by SustainLane U.S. City Rankings as the most sustainable city in the United States. It wasn't very long ago that folks thought they were doing their part by recycling bottles, cans, and cardboard. And like you, the folks in Portland, Oregon are big recyclers. But Portlanders have come to realize there's a lot more to being green than recycling. For instance, the homes we live in currently contribute over 25% of this country's carbon emissions. But there are lots of things we can do to reduce those emissions. Just ask Portland, Oregon businessman Tom Kelly.
There's a transformation going on in our market in the Portland and Oregon region, but also all over the country. You can't pick up a construction industry trade magazine today without finding an article or two about green construction. Everybody's talking about it, and even a year ago that wasn't the case. It's really an exciting transformation. I think it has to do with maybe a change in our society that's going on right now.
Tom Kelly is the second-generation owner of Neil Kelly Company, a leader in Portland's home building and remodeling industry. The company's Hood River Zero Net Energy home is the first home in the western United States to be awarded a LEED certification, and it's both a demonstration home for Neil Kelly customers and a learning retreat for Neil Kelly employees.
We felt that being the builder of the first LEED certified house was going to be a good thing for us in our business, that we wanted to be branded as, to be identified as one of the builders in Oregon that had in-house expertise in building really energy efficient homes. You know, in a typical home we have siding on the outside, then we have the 2x4 walls, and then we have the sheetrock, and then we have paint. Well, with the concrete block, for instance, what you see is what you got. There's no additional finishes that have to be put on. So we're saving resources by not having to have a whole bunch of layers. And that's what you see in the steel pan construction. So the ceiling of the downstairs floor is the steel. The simplicity of the construction method, I guess, is the best aspect. We're not involving so many materials. The photovoltaic system that we're utilizing is all integrated into, so the electricity that it's creating is driving the heat pump and heating the water that is then circulated in the floors that heats the house. It's a wonderful way to heat a house. Radiant heat. What we don't have is we don't have all those drafts of air being blasted around the house. We're utilizing the sun's energy through all of this glass to come in and heat the block, heat the walls. The fireplace does the same thing. When we build a fire, the heat stays in all that mass for a long period of time afterward. These windows are Marvin's Integrity window, and they're called low E glass, so they've got a thin film suspended in between the layers of glass, and that film is product that will deflect the sun's rays during the summertime when the sun is higher in the sky, and in the wintertime when it's lower, it allows those heat rays to come through. In the cabinets, we build the boxes, build the main frame of the cabinet with a product called wheat board, which is a non-formaldehyde content product made from the chaff of wheat. Very similar to what most people would know as particle board in its look and feel, but it's made with the chaff of wheat instead of wood products. In the kitchen, we have one product for a countertop that's called Ice Stone, made in the factory concrete countertop that incorporates recycled beer and wine bottle glass and also clamshells. So it's basically a combination of a bunch of reclaimed product that is made with concrete. The other one is Paper Stone, which is made with reclaimed newsprint and acrylics. So it's a really neat product that really got a great look too, besides being a green product. A really important energy efficiency feature of the house is that the roof is built with what's called SIPs. SIPs are structurally insulated panels. So it's a layer of OSB board, then a really thick layer of polystyrene, and then another layer of OSB, oriented strand board. So what these are these really big panels that are put up on the roof over the top of the beams. They're the roof structure. The roof on this house is R48. It's a really, energy efficient house, and where heat escapes the most easily naturally is through the roof. This house is built hell for stout, and I wouldn't be surprised to come back here 300 years from now and see this house still standing.
Today, we all have a stake in finding ways to create and maintain a sustainable supply of resources which remains in balance with the sustainable demand for those resources. The two businesses we'll visit next are very different from each other, but both share a passion for sustainability that runs throughout much of Portland, Oregon's business community. Just across from downtown Portland, on the east side of the Willamette River, in the shadow of Interstate 5, the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry attracts visitors young and old from all parts of the country. OMSI's current long-term installation is its first sustainable exhibit, the Innovation Station.
We realize that we are creating a new path, and we're looking for others, and there are many in the museum community, for instance, who are adapting natural step principles to the work that we do, and we hope that we can provide some examples to others based on our own experience. The Innovation Station was our first attempt at a truly sustainably produced exhibit, looking at the materials that were used in the construction, looking at the construction techniques, things that could be unbolted and reused, or parts that were interchangeable from one exhibit to the next, not gluing down laminate, but rather having things that could be separated again at the end of its exhibit life, and so that the materials could be recycled. OMSI is one of the largest producers of exhibits in the country, and so we are able to lead the way by looking at sustainable design and construction techniques. We hope to continue to produce exhibits sustainably. Sometimes it is more possible than others just because of the materials that are available, but we also want to use our place to tell others about this and hopefully set some good examples.
With less RAM, your computer might work more slowly. With less RAM, you usually need a network card not to connect to other computers. Without a sound card, manipulate and play. Without a CPU, your computer won't work.
Whoa! Now please make a fist and put it back. Good. Now shake your head. Make your hair float. Make it float. You got one yet?
In this country, there's less and less science being used in decision making. So as we develop exhibits, we would try to present choices for people, give them the scientific information, and then help them think about the choices that they make. Sometimes we even help them with how you make decisions when there are complex factors and many variables. I think that's the best that we can do. We can give good science information and bases and then help people know how to move that into action to make their own choices.
One of the Innovation Station's displays celebrates the choice made by a University of Oregon track coach named Bill Bowerman, who decided to mold the rubber soles of an experimental running shoe using his wife's waffle iron. The rest, as they say, is history.
Back in 1998, we took a decision to phase out PVC from our products. And it was very controversial. The industry, the vinyl industry, were not very happy with that decision. And so we really used the natural step framework, both in helping our decision making around that in the first place, but also as a means to explain to people why we were taking that step, why we were going to phase PVC out.
Beaverton, Oregon, is the home of Nike World Headquarters. The Nike campus reflects Nike's commitment to sustainability by balancing its world-class design with the natural wetlands and wooded areas the campus was built on.
If you walk around the campus, it's very easy to see some of the very obvious things that we have done around landscaping. Perhaps less obvious would be things like the steps we've taken around irrigation. But if you look broadly, I think of it in terms of applying across everything from the employees and their engagement in the work to what we've done in our buildings, our food services, the use of organic produce. Every place you look, you can find some aspect.
The Nike campus celebrates a number of sports legends who have been associated with the company. Also, a number of campus buildings have been awarded various LEED certifications.
And my favorite story is the running track, which originally is a 300-meter track, and it was supposed to be 6 lanes. And they played around with the positioning of this track for ages, and they couldn't get it to work. So they actually reduced it to 5 lanes so that it would fit within the trees that are in that environment. And it's a very special feeling to actually run on the track because you're so close to the trees. And if you're watching and spectating, you can't see people, which is also very unusual on a running track. You know, people are coming around and you just can't see them coming. So it's a fabulous spot.
The Nike running track is made from a material called Nike Grind. Fine granules of the ground-up soles of sports shoes collected in Nike's Reuse a Shoe program.
So far, we've recycled 19 million shoes and donated or helped to donate 250 sports surfaces with a big focus on underserved communities. Our priority is always about improving labor conditions in the contracted factories where we're making our products. The second area is around our product design, what goes into our shoes, apparel and equipment, and that's about designing sustainability into the products. The third area we're looking at is climate neutrality and making all our owned operations, that's our facilities and our retail and our business travel, climate neutral. And the fourth area is around the notion of sport for social change and bringing sport to excluded youth to improve their lives. We really see corporate responsibility and sustainability as a catalyst for innovation and primarily a business enhancing endeavor, and innovation for a better world is how we would now define it.
3 of the business leaders we've met have referred to something not many people in the United States have heard of: the natural step. The reason the natural step isn't better known here is because, currently, the only natural step organization in the U.S. is located in Portland, Oregon. The natural step is a framework of principles grounded in natural science that, over the past 20 years, have gained worldwide acceptance. The natural step principles serve as a guide for businesses, communities, educators, governments, and individuals on the path towards sustainable development. The first step of the natural step principles reminds us that in a sustainable society, nature is not subject to systematically increasing concentrations of substances extracted from the Earth's crust. The second step reminds us that in a sustainable society, nature is not subject to systematically increasing concentrations of substances produced by society. The third step reminds us that in a sustainable society, nature is not subject to increasing degradation by physical means. And the fourth step reminds us that in a sustainable society, people are not subject to conditions that systematically undermine their capacity to meet their needs. The businesses we're going to visit next, a couture fashion designer and an organic winemaker, both apply the principles of the natural step to their operations.
All of these incredible publications, Vogue, Elle, Women's Wear Daily, all of the major publications in the fashion industry and in other industries are picking up on this. Sustainability is talked about. I've been in most of these publications, which is just an honor and a very exciting movement. And what's in it for us? A world that we can live in, a world that our kids can live in, a better, respectful relationship that is give and take with the systems and each other. It's really amazing and exciting to see it happen, and it feels good.
Anna Cohen is a young Portland fashion designer who trained in both New York and Italy. Anna is one of a number of Portland designers whose dream is to move the fashion industry towards sustainability by following the principles of the natural step.
This is from Oaxaca, and these guys have had a lot of struggle recently, and I wanted to support the community there. The materials we use generally are soy blends, organic cotton, hemp, bamboo. We've been looking at seaweed lately. There are new developments happening all the time. Ingeo is a corn-based fiber. There are lots of choices out there as far as how we can kind of tap into many areas in sustainable fabrics. We'll move forward with a lightweight drapey knit. We've been looking at replacing it with the seaweed. This soy top has no accessories on it. It has no findings or hook and eye or any metal, that's very intentional. We try to design simply so that it can be taken apart and it can go back into the earth in the best way possible. You know, we could actually use the entire width of this for this particular piece. I think it will drape really well.
And is the
It'll hold the
thread
shape.
hand spun? I know it's hand woven, but is the thread spun by hand or is it spun by mechanical?
It's our responsibility as manufacturers and creators of these products to provide people with this on a competitive market level. And that's what makes a sustainable company completely successful. We wake people up and feel great about it, and they wake other people up, and at the same time we're providing product that's beautiful and competitive. It's a great cycle to be part of. I think that's part of the commitment to sustainability, is to slow down and start to be aware of the decisions that we're making and that we are voting with our dollar. It's you make a statement every time you make a purchase. It's very important to be intentional with those statements. Most likely, if something is very inexpensive, it's probably been produced in a manner that is not sustainable, in a way that hurts the people that are working on the product. It's been a mass manufacturing situation. So when you can get organic cotton, get organic cotton. When you can get bamboo over other existing fabrics that are produced in ways that are not necessarily taking into consideration the environment. Everybody's loved this. We've had huge, good feedback from buyers. Remember, these aren't the actual buttons, they're a size bigger than this. We need to supply something beautiful, something inspiring and amazing and competitive in the market that we're selling, so that people can easily make a shift. It doesn't feel any different than any other choice they would make. It's just as amazing as the other product. It's as far as aesthetic and function. However, it's so much better because it's sustainable. It's got natural systems that are being respected and honored in the process. So how could you possibly choose that over this?
Susan and Bill Blosser have always been environmentalists at heart. And over the past 30 years, their approach to winemaking has evolved accordingly. In 2002, the Sokol Blosser's new barrel cellar was one of the first to be awarded the coveted LEED certification for leadership in energy and environmental design.
When we started to look at everything that we do through the lens of the natural step, we realized how far we had to go. We started looking at our whole operation through different eyes, and our goal became sustainability across the operation. In other words, it wasn't enough just to farm organically, which means not using any synthetic herbicides, pesticides, any chemicals. We still worry about the kinds of machinery we use and the number of trips we make through the vineyard with that machinery, what we do in different practices and how sustainable those are, how we dispose of the materials that we use in the vineyard, the stakes, the plastic that we use for growing. All these are issues that we never thought about before. We have had such wonderful feedback from our customers and our employees, who really are happier to work for a business that stands for something. People used to say that sustainable development or sustainable economic development was an oxymoron. I think that's rubbish. I think that development now has to be sustainable, or it just shouldn't happen.
The three small businesses we'll visit next offer perspectives on the steps we can all take to become more sustainable.
Any way that we can be off the grid or not using petroleum is our objective. We are currently collecting waste vegetable oil from restaurants, local restaurants. We take the waste vegetable oil that has all the little bits and pieces of food and such in it, and then we'll take that, heat it, and then filter it to get rid of the particulate. And then at that point it's ready to be burned, and we just fill up our tanks, and our trucks are converted so that they can use that vegetable oil, and that's as simple as it gets.
Patricia Uber founded her company, TerraClean, based on research that demonstrated a successful cleaning business could operate free from dependence on fossil fuels. Not only do the TerraClean trucks run on vegetable oil, so do the engines that run the powerful water heating and vacuum components of the cleaning system. In addition to running her machinery on vegetable oil, Patricia is particularly proud of the quality of work her teams are able to deliver using non-toxic, bio-based, all-purpose cleaners. Patricia's use of natural, bio-based cleaning products is based on her answers to three basic questions. First, and most important, does it work well? Second, how far does the product travel from manufacturer to the grocery store? And third, are the values of the manufacturer in line with the TerraClean philosophy of not using any toxic substances in the product? Any homeowner can apply these same basic questions when shopping for sustainable cleaning products.
Liz refers to the cars as mobile hazardous waste generators, and it was important to us to find ways to improve that, to change the kind of the culture, the automotive culture.
Jim Hauser is the owner of Hawthorne Auto Repair. Jim spends a great deal of time and effort doing everything he can to operate his business in an environmentally sustainable way. He's probably one of the few auto shop owners in the country who would welcome seeing fewer cars on our streets and highways.
One of the things we've discovered is that as we change in one area, like doing away with solvents, we increase problems in other areas. The hot water parts washer takes electricity.
That's right. Hawthorne Auto no longer cleans greasy car parts with petroleum-based solvents. Instead, they use a hot water parts cleaner that does just as good a job and works much like a dishwasher. They also invested in a machine which replaces Freon with CFC-free, environmentally friendly refrigerant. And these days, those ubiquitous plastic one-quart oil bottles are a thing of the past at Hawthorne, since Jim restored an old-fashioned oil dispenser known as an Airboy.
There isn't anyone who says, I'm looking forward to spending more on gasoline. I really think it's important that I keep the Middle East oil flowing. The big arguments are safety, that these big vehicles are safer. To which I respond, well, look how safe a TriMet bus is. If you want safe, you know, short of a locomotive, nothing's going to tip that puppy over.
While Portland is ranked number 20 behind cities like New York, Boston, and San Francisco in regional public transportation ridership, it is ranked number 1 in number of electric cars used for pizza delivery. Dave Yutkin and Hot Lips Pizza have become national celebrities of late, principally because of their sustainable practices, such as using local grown foods and using electric cars to deliver their pizzas.
These are organic onions. We have local mushrooms over here. Sam is prepping up local shiitake mushrooms. We also have local asparagus here. I think early on I realized that shipping water was not an environmentally friendly thing to do. It burned up a lot of fossil fuel.
These are local shiitake mushrooms that are grown on a 0.4 acre farm here within the city limits of Portland.
If I could buy local produce, not only was I shortening up the food mile, but I was pumping dollars into the local economy and sourcing food that was grown for its flavor and not for its shipping qualities.
This is really cool lettuces that we get from Canby, Oregon, from Sheldon and Carroll with Your Kitchen Garden. And this variety right here, you can see from the shape, is called Fingers.
We're taking local wheat from our local wheat farmers. He makes up a big batch of dough.
We asked Dave, what came first, Dave? Great pizza or sustainability?
I think great pizza came first. And sustainability, fortunately, is linked with great pizza. And I think our pizza has gotten better since we've embraced sustainability.
By following the first 3 principles of the natural step, the companies we visited so far have not only contributed to a healthier environment, they've also improved their own bottom line. An improved bottom line goes a long way toward satisfying the natural step's 4th principle, that of meeting the human and economic needs of its people. In the Northwest Park blocks of downtown Portland, bicycling is a popular way of getting to work, particularly if you work at Natural Step member company Carlton Hart, an architectural firm focused on a wide range of public and private projects. The firm is especially proud of its work designing sustainable, affordable housing projects that are anything but the cheap and boxy affairs we often think of when we hear the term low-income housing.
I think typically when we're designing an environment for a neighborhood or a community, we try to look at the landscape to kind of see what's there. We try to see any attractive elements that should be preserved. We then try to basically integrate the housing and the buildings around that such that they respond to that. and then allow an opportunity for the way we design the buildings or the spaces, allow them as such that they can interact with those.
For Carlton Hart, their Olson Woods project, completed in 2005, represented an opportunity to expand on their ideas for sustainability and community development.
I think one thing that's unique about Olson Woods is that originally the site had an intense canopy of trees on it. And one of the things that we were able to do in terms of master planning the site was to basically look at those trees, evaluate how we could work the number of units into that area without removing most of the trees.
The site offered enough space to build 6 more apartment units than the 32 that were actually built. But Carlton Hart and their client, Community Partners for Affordable Housing, decided that building fewer units would not only save a number of trees, but would also allow them to save a major feature of the project, a natural wetland.
As you might imagine, putting multifamily affordable housing in the middle of an established single-family neighborhood raised concerns and raised issues and had its share of opposition. But through the communication process and the integration process, we feel like we integrated those concerns into the project. We addressed the concerns of the neighborhood while demonstrating to the neighborhood that what we wanted to do with this site was going to be a true asset to the community.
A signature feature of a Carlton Hart affordable housing project is the inclusion of a front porch on every unit.
Basically what we're trying to do is get people out of their units. We want folks to kind of get out and interact with their neighbors, and both for the idea to socialize. We're also looking at that as a way to basically as a form of security.
I lived in the same house for 28 years. I didn't know any of my neighbors that well. I lived in an old neighborhood and people didn't move away quickly, but I did not have such a close relationship with my neighbors as I do here.
The front porch opens up to the whole community and you can just see, you know, all the kids and, you know, make sure that that they don't go out in the street, or if you see somebody going out in the parking lot, you can say, you know.
Someone falls against rocks.
Yeah, somebody falls and, you know, and it's all right here. You can just watch them from right here. It's great. I love it.
When you start adding in elements such as a basketball court or a playground or some other areas, those are things which kind of allow people to kind of gather and socialize and recreate in a way that if you didn't have those elements, again, folks would kind of feel isolated and alienated because there was no way to interact with their neighbors.
We came here and I instantly fell in love with it. It was just, actually it's the most beautiful place I've ever lived.
My son is exposed to Spanish and Japanese and Somali and Arabic, and I think it's incredible.
In the after-school program, the kids go and get help with their homework after school. We're trying to get ahead in life. We're trying to stay on top of things, and any little help that we can get is just, it makes all the difference in the world. It really does.
I think what's different about our firm is that we have a strong mission that everybody should have a healthy lifestyle. Our goal has been is that folks of all socioeconomic levels should have good housing. They should have a good environment to live in. They should have good opportunities to recreate in their own front yard or backyard. They should have a living environment that they can afford. And to me, what we're trying to do is create those in our projects. I can see a day where projects like Olson Woods become the leaders in affordable housing. Very efficient, sustainable, green, work well with the environment. They're very attractive. They're the kind of things that people are going to want to live in because they create community, and they're something that they can afford.
Water conservation and conservation of our forest lands are a big focus for the companies we'll visit next.
A lot of people wonder why water conservation is important in an area where we get so much rain. And the answer is that it has to do with storage, that we don't get the rain exactly when people need to use it. So, my understanding is that as the climate is changing, that there will be more water coming down at once and longer dry periods in between. So it's becoming an even more important issue.
Cheryl Welch is the Sustainability Coordinator for the Tualatin Valley Water District. The district, which serves 200,000 people, is the second largest water district in the state of Oregon.
We embarked upon a building remodel and wanted to get that LEED certified, and that sort of brought everything together.
In 2003, the district headquarters rebuilding project was in full swing. One of the main features of the project was a rainwater conservation system that directs rainwater collected from the headquarters roof to a 40,000-gallon underground tank. The tank uses an ingenious invisible plastic structure which supports the weight of a small parking lot. The collected rainwater is used year-round to flush toilets and for grounds irrigation during the summer months.
This is our mechanical room for the rain store system. We decided to make this glassed in instead of off in some corner so that we could show people what it's like.
The district is proud of its LEED's Silver certification, which represents not only a host of recycled materials in its headquarters facility, but commitment to sustainability that runs throughout the district.
With some of our employees, it's changing the way that they look at things, but for a lot of people, it's just letting them know what's a more sustainable action than what they've been doing.
Through a series of work groups, Cheryl's sustainability team has mapped the activities, resources, and materials used in district operations. The process, guided by the 4 system conditions of the natural step, continues to make the Tualatin Valley Water District more sustainable with every passing day.
There's always something that an individual can do or that a business can do. And I think that that's very empowering to know that if I recycle one piece of paper or if I turn my computer off at night, you know, if everyone was doing that, it would make a huge difference. So doing my little part doesn't seem useless. It seems very important.
This clear-cut forest is an example of the degradation of nature which the natural step seeks to avoid through the application of its 3rd step.
I'm concerned about the temperature changes. I'm concerned about how those temperature changes affect the forest. I was actually a forester for 10 years and fought fires for 10 years. So the forests now are a little bit different. In many areas they're much drier and the fires are much larger. So it's a whole different beast out there now.
Mark Gowden and the Joinery have become known as one of Portland's finest furniture makers. Part of the reason for this success is Mark's decision to use only woods that come from sustainably managed forests.
All the wood is hand selected. Every board is put in its place for the specific reason. It's not done by a machine, it's all hand built. When we really get into the details with our customer on how a piece is made, how all the grains line up on drawers and the book matching of door panels, all these things are added value. And by the way, when you're purchasing this, it comes from a well-managed forest. Most of our wood comes from the Collins forests back in Pennsylvania. The cherry, the maple, poplar, some oaks. We call that Collins wood. The impact when they harvest their woods on the environment is so minimal, and you can see all around that it's done correctly. The streams are still going strong, the fish are there, the biodiversity, the whole ecosystem, it's really great. I often wonder with the global warming what will eventually happen to the forests back east and the forests out west. We'll see.
Truman Collins, the founder of the Collins Companies, came out west with his family at the turn of the last century. Collins' goals were to harvest the thousands of acres of forest lands he had purchased in the most efficient way possible. And, as every generation of Collins family members since Truman has known, the best way to harvest a forest is with the help of a loyal community of hardworking employees and their families who are treated well and know that their jobs will last as long as the forest continues to produce timber. This was the origin of the Collins concept of sustainable forestry practices, a concept which supports a thriving wood products business which continues to this day. Today, the Collins companies have 3 sustainable forests. Their original hardwoods forest in Pennsylvania and 2 pine forests in the west, one in Lakeview, Oregon, and the other in Chester, California.
The forests in Lakeview are a little different than the forests in Chester. They're the newer acquisition forest that's been in the family for less than 50 years, most of it. And so some of the forestry is actually, we're rehabbing down there. I mean, it was previously cut over, some of it pretty hard. So a lot of what we're doing in Lakeview is going to be more restoration forestry, where we're doing a lot of thinning. We're trying to nurture the fewer older trees so that we'll have a more mature forest going forward. The true resource for us in our forest isn't the trees. The real resource is the topsoil. So everything we do in our forest is to manage for that topsoil. The biodiversity of the animals, the trees, the waterways, the continuous forest canopy, all that goes back to trying to manage that magical topsoil. We know a lot of what makes topsoil work and the ribosomes and all the microbes that are in there and the carbon, but like a lot of nature's miracles, we don't really understand how it all works, and probably the best thing that we can do is step out of the way and let nature do its part.
What does letting nature do its part mean? For Collins, it means cutting only those trees that will allow the forest to become healthier. It means leaving bark, branches, and leaves on the ground to decompose and enrich the topsoil. It means keeping the watershed clean by maintaining the continuous forest canopy. It means allowing the forest to reseed itself naturally. All these steps combine into a forest maintenance approach called biomimicry. Over the past 20 years, the fire season in the United States has grown by 78 days, an increase tied to higher average temperatures and earlier snowmelt. In July, a fire broke out in the federal forest surrounding the Collins Lakeview Forest. The fire illustrates some of the profound differences between 2 approaches to maintaining healthy forests.
We spend billions of dollars preventing forest fires, but then we don't turn around and thin the forest, which the forest fires would have done if they would have let those forest fires go through there on a regular basis. And we suppressed fires for 100 years. So you go down to the federal lands, drive along, look at our lands, and they're nice and spread out. You can see 100 feet, 300 feet into the forest. Then you get onto the federal lands and it's a thicket because the fires have been suppressed, but they haven't thinned the land.
The Collins companies have been nurturing sustainable forests for over 150 years. In practice, the company has been implementing the basic principles of sustainability since Truman Collins bought his first stand of timber.
At each of our facilities, we have sawmills, we have facilities right there at our forests. We don't ship the logs, we don't export the logs, we don't ship the logs to a central location where they're processed. We try and keep the value in that town so that all you're doing is helping to reinvigorate and reuse the dollars there locally. And from the natural step standpoint, that's very important to keep the funds in the community and keep the local community vibrant.
In the heart of Oregon's Klamath Falls, the Collins family has been turning sustainably harvested timber into a number of familiar forest products for over 100 years. One of the products produced at the Collins Klamath Falls plant reduces the waste from other milling operations. Collins turns out millions of square feet of particle board each year. The company has recently begun manufacturing an improved particle board, which is both FSC certified and is made with water-based, no-added urea formaldehyde adhesives. In applying the natural step principles, Collins has also implemented additional energy and resource saving steps, which result in a healthier bottom line.
This is our press hydraulic unit. It's a new unit. A lot of it was funded by the Oregon Energy Trust. We used to have to use pumps to hold the press closed the whole time it was cooking a load. Now we're just utilizing pumps to close the press. Once it reaches its final position, all the pumps shut off for the rest of the cooking cycle. So it saves a tremendous amount of energy that way.
A second process that evolved from the natural step principles involves the dust from two huge automatic sanding machines. Previously, the dust was considered waste and was burned, but today all that has changed.
This is our sander dust storage system. It starts down there with our silo where we actually store the dust off the sander. It's blown through this high pressure line all the way from the silo down to here where we feed it into this bin and then we meter it into the system from there.
The sander dust is metered back into the particle board mix from these bins. Collins estimates that this one efficiency measure saves the company over $500,000 each year. Along with Seattle, Washington, and Sacramento, California, Portland holds the #1 spot for city innovation. Paul Schwer, one of the city's leading engineers, was recently awarded the Better Bricks Award by the City of Portland for his innovative work in the design of sustainable, high-performance buildings.
What we're trying to do is apply the best technologies from a variety of different sources to create a building that has the lightest environmental footprint and uses the least amount of energy, for instance, while still creating a comfortable atmosphere for all the people in the building. The building we're in here probably has about 800,000 gallons of water landing on the roof. And as part of that, we reclaim that water. In this particular building, which happens to be an engineering building, the water reclamation system is in the civil engineering lab. So the students get to see where the water comes down, how it's filtered, how it's used in their experiments. As an engineer, we're not inventors, but we're actually pushing the envelope. We're the people who specify the products that other people are inventing. And in some cases, if you're at the forefront, you're looking for products that don't exist yet. Yeah, sometimes I get asked whether if I were to design a city with all these ideas I have, what would it look like? And my response is, you don't want an engineer designing what a city looks like. It wouldn't be pretty at all. But if you ask me how would that city operate, that's a better question. And how it would operate would be, it would operate on nuclear power. The kind of nuclear power that's generated 93 million miles from here in the sun. So it would be 100% renewable energy, whether it's wind, whether it's solar, whether it's wave energy or geothermal, it would all be from renewable sources.
We believe that climate change and global warming is probably the most significant, serious issue facing mankind today, and we have got to find ways to address it, and we've got to address it soon. And I'm not talking 20 years or 30 years, I'm talking 10 years, maybe max.
Dennis Wild is a principal with Girding Edlin Developers, who, along with Williams and Dame, are developing Portland's south waterfront. The project is the largest economic development in Portland's history and the largest urban development in the nation. The district combines housing for over 3,000 residents, Oregon Health and Science University's research and clinical buildings, and infrastructure development representing thousands of jobs and hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes and consumer revenue to the city.
Our vision is that within 5 years, every building we build, design and build, will be at net zero energy. In other words, the building will give back as much, at least as much energy as it consumes. Now, how are we going to achieve that? So we're going to clad every building with photovoltaic panels. We're going to put wind turbines on the tops of our buildings. Probably we're going to do all that and then more, things that we haven't even envisioned yet. We're going to have to find solutions to. Because without that, without reducing that carbon footprint, if you will, of every building that we build, we'll never achieve the kinds of reductions in greenhouse gases that we need to. Take a building like the Meriwether. There are 243 housing units in that project on a little over 1.5 acres. An equivalent suburban development would take over 55 acres of space, you know, to house the same number of families. So we're reducing the footprint on the land, and then we're also trying to look at the materials that we use in the building of that building, using locally sourced materials, so we aren't shipping them from all across the planet. Looking at the energy we consume and the water we consume. It isn't simply about the bricks and mortar. It's really how do you create a community that sees this as part of their vision. We're going to be getting people out of their automobiles and affording them other ways to move around, whether it's walking or mass transit. For instance, you know, I live here in the South Waterfront. I work down in the Pearl District. It's a 17-minute streetcar ride for me, door to door almost. So, you know, I couldn't ask for you know, a better transit option. And most of the time I ride my bike. It's 15 minutes by bike. Why should we be afraid of reducing global warming? You know, the old saw is, well, you know, it's going to have a negative impact on the economy. Well, my argument is that baloney. We're going to create jobs. We're going to create new industry. We're going to create a whole new way of doing business that'll be positive for the economy at the same time that we're being responsible to the environment.
The companies we visited in the last hour all subscribe to the principles of the natural step. And they are not only thriving, they are representative of the leadership principles which have combined to make Portland, Oregon, the #1 most sustainable city in the United States.
It's not incremental improvements and I'll be 10% better or 20% better. There is an end goal. How do we get there? And the natural step provides that kind of compass.
As we move forward with our design, the principles and the 4 systems of the natural step are pretty much integrated into our process from the very beginning.
It has given us a framework for looking at decisions and choices we have to make in our business in terms of how they meet the 4 principles.
There's the social side of it, being around like-minded businesses and finding inspiration there. The other is having a set of principles to judge our actions against, to kind of go down a checklist and saying, am I doing something that affects, you know, the world in these 4 different ways? And then I can go forward and take actions.
At the time, even a conservative controller accountant that we had, I just didn't think he could, you know, he would get into this at all. But they all went to the training and they came back and said, yeah, this is for us.
It's so embedded in our processes that we, you know, oh yeah, of course, that's the social equity side. That's number 4. It's part of our language anyway, so I almost feel like it's not even, it's already integrated into who we are.
What we've really done is adapted those principles into more workable solutions for Nike. So we have, you know, they're there at the base of many of our design principles, but we've layered on top of them as we've learned additional things.
because public utilities plan well into the future, I think the natural step conditions are a good framework for looking at long-term, using backcasting, using process mapping to really target where they're going.
Put yourself 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 years in the future and you say, you know, I'm now in the future, I'm seeing something that's really positive, that's supporting life on the planet, and here's the features that it incorporates. Now, what do I have to do today in order to achieve that objective?
For more information about the principles of the natural step, or to order a copy of this program, visit www.passionforsustainability.com.